Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into the world of nickel.
Nickel.
You got it. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Nickel, that doesn't sound very exciting. But trust me, this element, it's got a story that goes back thousands of years, and it touches our lives in ways we probably don't even realize.
You're right, it often flies under the radar, nickel does, but it's woven into human history, and it plays such a vital role in our modern world.
Absolutely. We're talking about ancient artifacts, meteorites, even deep-sea mining. Can you believe it? There are even links to the planet's biggest extinction event. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start with the basics. What exactly is nickel, and what makes it so special?
Well, at its core, nickel is the fifth most common element on Earth.
Fifth. That's pretty high up there.
It is, but there's a catch.
Uh-oh, there's always a catch.
Most of it, and I mean the vast majority, is locked away deep, deep down in the Earth's core. Just picture it, this sea of molten nickel, all mixed up with iron, trapped under unimaginable pressure. It's the nickel we can get to that's really interesting.
Okay, so the nickel we actually mine and use, that's just a tiny, tiny fraction of what's actually out there.
Exactly. We're talking about specific deposits, certain types of ores that are, well, they're far from unlimited. What makes nickel so valuable, though, is its properties, its unique set of characteristics.
Like what?
Well, picture this. A silvery white metal, kind of got this subtle golden sheen to it. And it's tough. Oh, it's incredibly tough, naturally resistant to corrosion. And here's the real kicker. It's magnetic at room temperature.
Magnetic. Okay, now that's a party trick.
It is, and it's one of only 4 elements on the entire periodic table that can claim that. This unique combination of strength, its resilience, its magnetism, makes nickel incredibly valuable.
I'm already hooked, but before we get into how we use it today, let's rewind the clock a bit. You mentioned ancient artifacts earlier. What's the story there?
Oh, it's fascinating. Humans, we've been using nickel for millennia without even realizing it. Take ancient Syrian bronzes, for example. These artifacts, they date back to 3500 BCE. And guess what? They contain traces of nickel, meaning it was being used unintentionally in tools and weapons thousands of years ago.
That's incredible. It's like this hidden history right under our noses.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. Fast forward a few thousand years to ancient China, and there's more evidence. They had white copper, an alloy they really valued, even traded with Europe. And guess what gave it its special qualities?
Nickel.
You got it. They had no idea, but it was nickel all along.
It's amazing how something so valuable could stay hidden for so long, but it was bound to be discovered eventually. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Now, in the 1700s, German miners, they kept finding this reddish ore, and they thought, copper. But here's the thing. They tried everything to extract copper from it, but nothing worked. Nope. They even gave it a nickname. Kupfernickel. Copper demon, or devil's copper, because they thought they were being tricked, that some mischievous spirit was playing a prank.
Oh, the irony. So when did we finally unmask this mysterious metal? When did nickel step into the light?
Well, a Swedish chemist by the name of Axel Fredrik Cronstedt finally isolated nickel, and this was in 1751. That's when it got a name, a place on the periodic table. Devil's copper was revealed.
We're a debut! But how did we go from thinking it was a geological prank to using nickel on a global scale?
That's where things get really interesting. By the 1800s, nickel had gone from this accidental additive to a sought-after metal. And you know what one of its primary uses was?
What's that?
Coinage.
Yeah.
It was durable, didn't corrode easily, took a good shine, perfect for coins.
Ever
Right?
since.
Even the U.S., they experimented with a nickel-copper alloy for their Flying Eagle scent back in the 1850s.
So nickel was riding high, its face stamped on currency all around the world. But was it too good to be true? Were there any downsides to using nickel for coins?
Well, as it turned out, nickel's properties, the very things that made it attractive, also presented some challenges. You see, minting coins requires a metal that's relatively easy to work with, to shape, to stamp. Nickel, unfortunately, can be a bit stubborn. Yeah, it's tougher, less malleable than some of the alternatives, like copper or silver.
So trying to work with nickel is like trying to make a delicate snowflake out of a steel beam.
You got it. Plus, nickel's price can be volatile. It fluctuates. As other cheaper metals were discovered, using nickel for coinage became less economically attractive, in many parts of the world at least.
So nickel's moment in the spotlight was relatively short-lived then.
In a way, yes. But that doesn't mean it faded into obscurity, not at all. In fact, it was really just the beginning of nickel's journey as a crucial element in our modern world.
So where does nickel fit in now? We know it's more than just old coins. Something tells me its story isn't over yet.
Not even close. Remember how we talked about most of Earth's nickel being locked away in the core? Well, that presents a bit of a challenge when it comes to meeting demand, especially as it keeps growing.
Growing demand. Just how much do we rely on nickel these days? Give me the rundown.
Okay, think about it. Smartphones, laptops, and of course the big one lately, electric vehicles. All of those technologies depend on nickel. They really rely on it. So as demand for those technologies keeps growing, well, so does the need for nickel, naturally.
That does sound like a potential problem, especially if, as you said, those accessible nickel deposits are limited.
It's definitely a complex issue. We have to consider the environmental impact. Mining and processing nickel isn't exactly a walk in the park. And then there are the economic realities, limited resources and all that.
Yeah.
And of course, we can't forget the ethical side of things, sourcing materials responsibly and all. It's a lot.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. You mentioned the difference between nickel resources and reserves earlier. Can you break that down a bit more? What does that distinction really mean in this context?
Absolutely. So when we talk about resources, we're talking about all the nickel that's out there. Theoretically, even if we can't get to it right now, even if we don't have the technology, it's a bit like, how can I explain this? It's like looking at a giant birthday cake, right? And, there's tons of frosting inside, but you can only really reach the frosting around the edges easily. So those accessible edges, that's the reserves, that's the nickel deposits we know about that we can get to and that we can actually extract economically with the technology we have right now. And unfortunately, those reserves, they're just a fraction of the total resources.
Okay, so even though it might seem like we're swimming in nickel, the reality is much more complicated. Now, what about those environmental impacts you mentioned? What kind of concerns are there around nickel mining specifically?
That's a big one, and we have to talk about it. Like a lot of large-scale mining operations, nickel mining can leave a pretty big mark on the environment. We're talking deforestation, habitat destruction, soil erosion, even water pollution. And we can't forget about the energy it takes to extract and process the nickel. A lot of the time, that relies on fossil fuels, which, as we know, contributes to greenhouse gas emissions.
It's like a double-edged sword, isn't it? We need nickel for these green technologies, but then getting it out of the ground can be harmful to the environment we're trying to protect.
It's a tough balance, for sure. The good news is that more and more people are pushing for sustainable nickel mining. That means stricter regulations, less waste from the mining process, and trying to use renewable energy sources as much as possible.
So making the mining itself more sustainable is definitely key. What about finding other ways to get nickel? Are there any promising alternatives being explored?
There are. Researchers and companies are looking at some pretty interesting options. For instance, remember those deep-sea nodules we talked about before?
Ones on the ocean floor.
Yeah, exactly. Picture vast plains under the ocean, and they're just covered in these nodules, kind of like potatoes, and they're full of valuable metals like nickel, manganese, cobalt, all sorts.
It does sound kind of like science fiction, now that you mention it.
Right. Now, it's not a perfect solution, and we have to be really careful with deep-sea mining to make sure we don't do more harm than good. But it could be a way to access a lot of nickel, maybe even help us rely less on traditional mining.
So it's about carefully weighing the pros and cons, trying to minimize that impact as much as possible. Speaking of pros, I do want to hear about all the amazing things nickel is used for. It can't be all doom and gloom, right?
Absolutely not. Nickel might have gotten a bit of a bad reputation because of the environmental concerns, which are valid, but it's also the unsung hero of a lot of modern technology. Seriously, we come into contact with it every single day, probably without even knowing it.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about how nickel is improving our lives. Spill the beans.
Well, let's start with the obvious one, stainless steel. And I'm not just talking about shiny kitchens here. Think big. Bridges, skyscrapers, even medical equipment, and those huge tanks they use for chemical processing. Nickel helps make those things incredibly strong and resistant to corrosion, which is essential.
Wow, I never really thought about it like that, but it's incredible how this one element is holding up so much of our world.
And we're just getting started. Nickel is also a key ingredient in what are called superalloys. These are materials that are specifically designed to withstand really, really intense conditions. High temperatures, extreme pressure, that sort of thing.
Okay, like what? Give me some examples. What can withstand that kind of pressure?
Think jet engines, gas turbines, even the inside of nuclear reactors.
Wow. Okay, that's some next level strength right there.
Right. Nickel is a high achiever. And remember those batteries we talked about? The ones in such high demand?
Of course. How could I forget?
Well, nickel plays a starring role there, too. It's super important in developing advanced rechargeable batteries, particularly for electric vehicles. In fact, some of the most promising battery technologies for electric vehicles, the ones that could really be game changers, rely heavily on nickel. That's how they store so much energy.
So nickel is powering our homes, our vehicles, maybe even a greener future. Is there anything this element can't do? This is amazing.
You'd be surprised. Believe it or not, nickel isn't just an industrial powerhouse. It also plays a crucial role, although often overlooked, in the biological world, in living things.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying nickel is essential for life? Tell me more.
In a lot of ways it is. There's still so much we're learning, but we know that nickel is a critical part of certain enzymes in plants and microorganisms.
Enzymes. Those are like the little helpers inside cells that make sure everything runs smoothly, right? What does nickel do in there?
It's involved in some pretty important processes. For instance, there's this enzyme called urease, and it basically helps plants break down a compound called urea into something they can actually use, nitrogen, which is essential for their growth. Without nickel, that whole process wouldn't happen.
So nickel is helping to feed the world. Amazing. It really is a multi-talented element.
It really is. But it's not all good news. Some nickel-containing enzymes can actually cause problems, especially in bacteria.
Oh no, like what?
Well, take Helicobacter pylori, for example. You know, the bacteria that causes those painful stomach ulcers.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Well, it actually uses a nickel-containing enzyme to survive in the acidic environment of our stomachs. That's how it does its damage.
Wow, talk about a double-edged sword. This just keeps getting more interesting. What about humans? Do we need nickel too?
That's a great question, and to be honest, researchers are still trying to figure that out completely. We know there's a little bit of nickel in our bodies, and it seems like it's involved in some metabolic processes.
Mm-hmm.
But whether or not we absolutely need it to survive is still up for debate. What we do know is that we don't need a lot, and too much nickel can definitely be harmful.
So like a lot of things in life, it's all about balance.
Exactly. It's incredible to think about. This one element that can power our technology also plays a part in the incredibly complex web of life on this planet. It makes you think.
I know, right? It's kind of mind-blowing when you really think about it.
It is.
This one element has so many sides to it.
Definitely.
From our phones and electric cars to, like you said, the tiniest organisms.
Yeah.
This deep dive has been eye-opening, that's for sure.
I'm glad to hear that.
Well, speaking of eye-opening, I do want to go back to that question you asked earlier about the future of nickel.
Oh, right.
As we're moving as a society, toward a more electrified future, how do we make sure we have a nickel economy that actually works? Sustainably,
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And honestly, it's not a question we can afford to ignore.
Definitely not.
And it's bigger than just, okay, how do we find more nickel? Although that is a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, but it's not the whole picture.
Exactly. We have to fundamentally rethink our approach, our whole mindset.
What do you mean by that?
Well, for too long, we've operated under this assumption that we can just keep extracting resources forever with no consequences.
Right, and we're starting to see how that's not working out so well.
Exactly. So it's about decoupling our economic growth from environmental harm.
Okay, I like the sound of that, but how do we do that with nickel specifically?
Well, for one, we have to get serious about recycling and reusing the nickel we already have.
Recycling, right? Of course.
Seems obvious, but we can always do better.
For sure.
And we need to support and invest in new technologies, innovations that allow us to do more with less.
So less mining, less environmental damage, that sort of thing.
Exactly. It's about a systemic change. It's not just about finding a quick fix.
Gotcha. Do you have any examples of what that might look like in action? Like, how do we actually create a more sustainable nickel system?
Sure. Let's take those electric vehicle batteries we keep talking about.
Good example.
Imagine if we could create a closed-loop system, a circular economy for those batteries.
Okay, I'm following.
So at the end of their life, instead of just throwing them away, they get recycled, and the nickel inside is recovered.
And used to create new batteries.
Exactly. It's a continuous cycle. Now, that's just one example.
Sure.
But it shows the kind of thinking we need to embrace.
Thinking about the entire life cycle of the materials we use.
Yes. It makes you realize the future of nickel is part of a much bigger picture. It's about rethinking how we approach resources as a whole.
It's not just about nickel at all, is it?
Exactly.
This has been so fascinating.
I'm glad you think so.
We've covered so much ground, from those ancient bronzes to high-tech batteries and everything in between.
It's quite a journey when you lay it all out like that.
So, if we had to sum it all up, what have we learned about nickel today?
Well, I think it's safe to say that nickel, this element that so many people probably don't think twice about, it's more important than it gets credit for.
For sure.
It presents some real challenges, especially when it comes to balancing our need for it with protecting the environment.
Right. Those environmental concerns are real.
They are, but it also offers incredible opportunities, especially as we transition to a more sustainable future.
It's an essential ingredient, both literally and figuratively, in so many ways.
I like that. Essential ingredient. That's a good way to put it.
Well, to our listener, I hope you've enjoyed exploring the world of nickel with us today as much as we have.
I second that.
It's an element with a fascinating history. It plays a crucial role in our lives right now, and its future is full of possibilities, both exciting and challenging.
And as we've seen, it's a great example of how even the most unassuming elements have a story to tell.
A story that's worth listening to.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder that we're all connected, and what we do with these resources matters.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, on that note, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of nickel.
It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Until next time, stay curious.